And welcome to today's Sunday Talk broadcast. Today I'm going to share some information about virtues, the aura, and healing. This is very interesting to even talk about an aura because most people don't see auras. But we can sense auras. And in sensing auras, we become better acquainted with the nature of our environment, with the nature of our friends, the nature of our family, and just in general, the nature of ourselves. And there comes a time where through this sensitivity, you're going to have glimpses of recognition of the different colors of a person's aura. So it's not something that you practice or that you try to force yourself to see. It's just a natural phenomenon. So today I'm going to be talking not only about virtues and healing, but also the aura. And next month I have 2 lectures planned, Sunday talks planned, talking more about the aura. So this is just kind of an introduction today. So the aura is formed by the emanations that radiate out of our vehicles. According to their vibration, according to their frequency, certain colors come into existence. Now, the etheric body, people who tend to see auras typically see the aura of the etheric body, and they think that the etheric body is the aura. But that is not the case. The etheric body is part of the aura, but not the aura itself. Now the health aura is the emanation of one's dense physical body. What is interesting to know, and this is something you're just going to have to base on trust until you have the ability to really see a person's aura, to know that the aura is made of 12 components. These 12 components they don't become active until our consciousness is able to register higher frequencies. So in other words, these 12 components are actually not active in the lower levels of consciousness, but they come into activity when our real inner self gains more control over our vehicles. Now the aura of an average person. The aura of an average person is composed of the radiation of their physical, etheric, astral, and lower mental bodies. But as we advance, we build higher bodies and add new substances and colors into our aura. We unfold our centers, and through the unfolding process of our centers, they bring greater abundance into our aura. As we develop, as we unfold, as we approach spiritual perfection, our aura begins to demonstrate like a symphony of color, scintillating within these 12 components, or these 12 predominating colors. A person, this advancing person, is then recognized subjectively by their aura, just as if it were their uniform. So what does this mean to be recognized subjectively? When you go to sleep and you have your dreams and you sense that you recognize somebody, even they don't look like the person that you know in the physical plane. What you're recognizing is the radiation or the emanation of these scintillating colors that make up their uniform. I wish there was a better word than uniform, but it is what they're clothed in. The spirit is clothed in. It's so beautiful. And so this is what, as we're going to learn today, why virtues are so important, not only to develop, but to practice, because these virtues carry energy with them, and color and sound. And as we begin to put virtues into practice, we're going to learn today that there are higher virtues and that there are 7 octaves to every virtue. That as we put these virtues into expression, then the radiation of our aura, the colors of our aura begin to change. The radiation becomes more powerful, and eventually, when we ourselves leave our body, we are leaving through the aura of these radiating colors. So the teaching explains that our human aura is formed of 12 colors. It also says that these 12 colors do not change. But at the 4th initiation, what we call the 4th initiation of consciousness, the chalice in our higher mind becomes dissipated and replaced by the spiritual triad. Now, the spiritual triad carries the 3 original colors, and these 3 original colors are orange and rose and yellow. Isn't this interesting? Can you imagine being clairvoyant and having the ability to see these colors instead of just skin? So the aura of an average person, like I said, is composed of the radiation of their etheric, astral, physical, etheric, astral, and lower mental bodies. And like I said, as we advance, we build higher bodies. And this is what our goal is, to build these higher bodies. Because once we construct these higher bodies of consciousness, these higher bodies bring a greater abundance into our aura. So virtues are vital to the health of our aura. Virtues are like the fragrance of flowers. They radiate out as beauty and goodness and joy, spreading health and energy and happiness. So a person of virtue, we could say, is like a bouquet of flowers. Each flower emanates not only its own fragrance, but its own note. This is why I think that, let's say that we're in a room of people, and our back is to the door, the entrance of the room. And all of a sudden we sense somebody coming in through that door. And that sense is the fragrance of the person coming into the room. So that fragrance, and sometimes if we're sensitive enough, we can even see a color. Even though we're not, facing toward the door, the person coming through it, we have these senses of fragrance and color, and that's what we carry with us. And of course, we have stinky flowers. And we can pretty easily recognize when a stinky person comes in the room. On higher planes, a person is perceived as music or as a symphony. So, for example, a virtuous person can emanate healing powers. Virtues, now we're learning that virtues not only heal on the physical plane, but their healing powers also purify space and penetrate into the higher strata of the subtle worlds, thus building a channel between the objective and subjective worlds. So the etheric and astral, mental and higher centers are like flowers that unfold and flourish as the rays of our virtues. As these rays of our virtues radiate out from our inner core. So it's helpful to recognize and to think about the term inner core and how the rays of the virtues begin to, through practice, through manifestation, radiate out from our inner core. We tend not to think this way. You know, we tend to think about our physical aches and pains. That's pretty easy. But to think about through the practice of manifesting and putting into service certain virtues, then these virtues have rays, and the rays begin to manifest through our inner core. I think it's so beautiful to know that these rays radiate out from our inner core. Now, think about animals. Animals smell these radiations, or emanations. They can smell hatred and fear and jealousy. And they can also smell joy and love and peace, even goodwill and nobility. So, rather than taking my word for it, if you're around animals, whether they're pets or animals on a farm, like cows, you know, cows are so sensitive. Horses are also extremely sensitive. Even elephants. Now, I've never been that close to an elephant to observe, but I certainly have been surrounded with dogs. And just become a keen observer of animals and recognize and see when they are responding through jealousy, or responding to jealousy, or responding, maybe reacting to hatred and fear. And then look at the difference between joy, how they respond to joy, and so forth. It's so wonderful to see. A virtuous person radiates their innermost self, the God within, the glory within, the creative source within. Whatever you call it, it doesn't make any difference. A virtuous person radiates their innermost source, self, innermost self. The inner core is a fiery essence around which various rings accumulate. Now, this is something we don't want. We don't want these rings to accumulate, because accumulation of rings limit our radioactivity. So this is why some people seem to be so effusive, and we can sense them, you know, at a great distance away. And then there are people that just have no energy around them. And they can walk by you and you won't even know they're there. Right? because they have all these rings. Now, most of these rings are formed by thoughts, emotions, words, and deeds that are contrary to righteousness, beauty, goodness, purity, light, and love. So we have virtues, and there's always the opposite. So the opposite of virtues are vices. Vices, this is interesting, and the teaching tells us that vices are misused virtues. When the polarity of a virtue changes and becomes repulsive or negative, that's when we develop a vice. So you can see this reversal when love changes into hatred or into fanaticism. This is how the Inquisition came into being. In the hearts of his followers, the supreme love of Christ was changed into what? Into bitter hatred through the mechanism of dogma and doctrine and fanaticism. We can still see this going on today in our so-called age of light and freedom. Fanatics, in the name of their supreme leader, organize attacks on other religions or faiths, which are their opposites. These opposites are not followers of glamours and illusions, but they exercise instead compassion, tolerance, and spiritual honesty. The polarity of a virtue changes because negative thoughts, and that's what's forming these rings that prevent the radiation of a person's aura. Negative thoughts, negative emotions, and words. The polarity of the rays changes when our self, our capital S self, identifies with the matter aspect and begins to work for separative interests instead of working for the best interest of all. So selfishness manifests as consideration for the best, in selflessness manifests as consideration for the best interest of all. That's selflessness. Selfishness manifests as consideration only for the benefit of a single part. That's selfishness. The self can radiate only when the other rings change their polarity and allow the rays of the self to manifest in some form of virtues. So each manifestation of a virtue is a process of integration. Now, think about this. Each manifestation of a virtue is a process of integration, of fusion, of synthesis, and of healing. Any resistance to the outpouring rays of the virtues creates friction. Any resistance to these virtues creates a friction, and friction manifests as disease, as sickness, or as various problems and various levels of our personality life. Isn't that interesting? There's such a science to this. So as the negative walls or rings increase around the radiant nucleus, a person becomes more selfish and more self-destructive. In selfishness, the capital S self identifies itself with these negative walls of the personality, and it is here where the rays of the virtues turn into vices. Vices disintegrate the unity of our organism. Vices disintegrate the unity of our organism, our vehicles, and lead us to take actions against our own survival and progress. In this condition, in this state, we work against ourselves and we become our worst enemy. Now, on the other side, a virtuous person is an open magnetic field to those unseen forces of the subjective world, capable of communing with those forces and receiving higher cosmic inspirations and impressions. So we read the biographies of great ones and wonder, how are they able to accomplish or to do what they do as a single person, as a single individual? Well, all we can see is the individual single person. What we're not seeing is through the virtuousness of their nature is that they are capable of communing with those forces, higher forces, where they receive cosmic inspiration, cosmic impression, and help. So they become an army of benevolent forces. A virtuous person is a focus of benevolent forces. These forces manifest through a virtuous one, the way a beam of light shines through a prism. All human progress and all real culture are the result of this communion. So the first sign that we are coming in contact with higher forces is when we begin to manifest beauty in all of our relationships. We no longer can encourage ugliness or injustice or vanity, but instead we're going to stand for beauty and for principles. The first time you establish contact with the higher principles, this is very interesting, what happens is, and you're going to recognize it, you're not identifying or naming it, but you're going to recognize that as you establish this first establishment of contact with the higher principle, you're going to develop a system, what we call a system of censorship within your personality. Now you have discrimination or censorship in your personality. From that moment on, you clearly observe all your actions and eliminate those actions which do not agree with higher principles. This censorship is what we call the manifestation of your conscience. You now have a conscience and you are on your way to becoming a true human being. Censorship eventually turns into a command post, which gradually eliminates all opposition to light, righteousness, beauty, joy, serenity, and so on. So as our personality is tuned in with higher principles and with the rays of the self, it's going to manifest in health and happiness and joy and energy. For example, Let's take the virtue of striving. Striving starts from within. Striving starts from within. It is the presence by which your inner core tries to manifest and master its vehicles, tries to master its vehicles in life. In striving, we begin to make efforts to surpass ourselves. No matter what we are engaged in, we try to do better and better in the light of what? Of beauty, in the light of goodness, in the light of truth. We try to work better in our home, in our office, school, and so forth. We try to surpass our former level of knowledge and awareness and beingness. Now, this is the type of person we want to not only be and become, but this is the type of person we want to surround ourselves with. I think there would be less divorce in the world if we understood these principles and understood the power of the manifestation of virtue and how to look for the expression of these principles and virtues in our relationships. If we just had a little bit of knowledge like this, I think that marriage and friendships and family relationships would be seen with such great improvement and success that we would feel less pain, less sorrow, less rejection. So the virtue of striving has many octaves. The virtue of striving has many octaves, as do all virtues. There are physical octaves, emotional octaves, mental octaves. In lower octaves of these virtues, during the expression of these lower octaves, is where we begin to improve our behavior, improve the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we move, the way we gesture, and our relationships with others. Then, on higher octaves, we must improve our emotions and our emotional relationships. On still higher octaves, we must improve our mental activities, our thoughts, and even our mental relationships. And on still higher octaves, we're going to deepen our intuition and so forth. So, like I said, there are 7 octaves. Each virtue can be exercised on all 7 planes of our being. The physical, emotional, and mental planes are considered the exoteric field of the expression of virtue, and the higher planes are the esoteric manifestation, the esoteric field of the manifestation of the higher octaves of these virtues. Striving increases only, this is so interesting, and to really think about it, that striving increases only when we have opposition. Opposition evokes striving. Difficulties evokes striving. Obstacles evokes striving. Even hindrances evoke striving. So we want to have opposition and difficulties and obstacles and hindrances to evoke striving. Luxury, the teaching tells us over and over that luxury and an easy life kills the spirit of striving. Striving produces a tonic for the brain, for the nervous system, and spleen. These are the main networks through which prana is received and used. When the great ones emphasize virtue, they are really telling us that virtue means health. Those who are insane, those people who are cruel, these people are unhealthy. They lack virtue and they have no balance or equilibrium in their lives. Virtues accumulate psychic energy within the network of your etheric body and within the network of your chalice. It is this energy which produces all the biochemicals you need and sustains your health for a long time. Isn't that interesting? So psychic energy. We are going to be experiencing a conference in a couple of weeks, which if you have not registered and want to, now's the time to do it. We're going to be talking for 3 days about psychic energy. And it's going to be a remarkable conference, actually. I've seen some of the presentations of the presenters and some videos, and I mean, it really is going to be remarkable. So, if you want to learn why psychic energy is the elixir of life, register. You can come in person or attend on Zoom and experience White Mountain's annual conference. Psychic energy is the essence of all virtues, which not only revitalizes our threefold nature, but also puts us in contact, like I said earlier, with the cosmic sources of light and harmony. Now, each virtue is related to one of the parts of our body. Each virtue is related to one of the parts of our body. Each virtue has its own color, like I said, its own fragrance, its own note, even its own motion, and its own octaves. On each octave, it manifests differently and forms, if you're a musician, you'll recognize these terms, major or minor keys. Octaves are divided into higher and lower octaves. In higher octaves, so listen to this, you don't have to be a musician to know this. In higher octaves, the virtue is closer to the archetype, closer to its archetype, and channels tremendous energy. When integration is achieved, lower octaves are then used to manifest the charge of higher octaves. Each virtue is a ray from one of the zodiacal signs. This ray passes through one of the petals of your 12-petaled lotus. Remember I said in the early part of the presentation this morning about the 12 components of the aura? Now I'm bringing it around to this, that the ray of each virtue passes through one of the petals of our 12-petaled lotus and turns into a virtue. These are part of the 12 components. Every virtue, these 12 components are part of our lotus, the 12 petals of the lotus. Every virtue is a power with a very strong charge, unless it is distorted or broken by glamours and illusions and Maya existing in the body. So each virtue affects the aura, which keeps our body healthy and in tune with the zodiac. Who knew? Well, this is the esoteric side of the Ageless Wisdom. The virtues related to our zodiac, and I'm going to give you a run through the list quite quick here. The virtues related to our zodiac are striving, courage, daring, discrimination, solemnity, harmlessness, service, compassion, patient, fearlessness, gratitude, responsibility, enthusiasm, sacrifice, and nobility. Now, there are 3 virtues the teaching tells us that are related to the greater zodiac. The greater zodiac is made of the Great Bear, of Sirius, and Orion. So the virtue that is related to the Great Bear, which is part of the greater zodiac, is enthusiasm. Sacrifice is the virtue related to Sirius, and nobility is the virtue related to Orion. So the next time you see Sirius and Orion and the Great Bear in the sky, you can think about these 3 virtues. The larger and more proportionate the aura is to the body, the healthier we are. As the aura, when an aura is narrow and irregular in proportion to the body, it means that there are problems with our body, emotions, or mind. When our physical body is sick, the aura does not radiate regularly. And this is when the aura becomes narrower around the parts of our body that are sick. And clairvoyants have the ability to see this. This is why we want to find a clairvoyant doctor, a clairvoyant physician. It is similar for the subtle bodies. Each subtle body shrinks toward our physical body. It shrinks toward our physical body, just like a dry fruit shrinks and loses its color. It's like the banana that beautiful yellow banana that I bought 5 days ago is now brown and shriveled. And I don't make banana bread, so. A healthy person radiates a 7 to 9 foot aura. Imagine that. 7 to 9 feet with clear colors. Radiation of their aura extends further when a person dresses in white. So this is why during certain ceremonies, particularly the Wesak festival, we wear white so we can radiate our aura. The colors of the aura indicate changes in the state of consciousness. The voltage and intensity of thoughts, the density of emotions, and the pressure of actions. The pressure of actions originates from intentions. The pressure of actions is motivated by the intentions and motives behind them. All of our thoughts, emotions, and actions then create changes in the color of our aura. Isn't this interesting? Mm-hmm. Enthusiasm. Now, enthusiasm charges our aura with electrical fire. Gratitude channels energy from the chalice to the aura. In the spirit of gratitude, the atomic substance increases in the aura and makes it magnetic. Atomic substance is built by the atoms of the highest level of each plane. Now, enthusiasm creates sublimation in our aura. In each body, the lower atoms travel to the higher levels and radiate their purest colors. I wish we had a hologram of a diagram so you could see how these lower atoms travel into the higher planes of consciousness, but use your imagination. So the fire of enthusiasm is the furnace of transmutation of the aura. Let me close with this. Love. Love refers to a love that is active and expresses itself in action to help people go forward on their path of evolution. This is love. The love means to free ourselves gradually from selfishness, from separatism, from luxury and vanity, and try to live and feel and think for the benefit of other people. Such a love brings beautiful colors into the aura and form the love petals of the lotus. Love currents have great power of health. So that's just what I'm going to share with you today. And like I said, next month in April, I've got 2 more lectures that I'm really looking forward to being able to share with you, and so that someday we're going to be able to see, not just know about, but we're going to be able to see what an aura really looks like. And as we begin to recognize an aura, we're going to recognize more and know more about that person, that country, our environment, than trying to understand it with our mind. Now we can see.